What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Simba in the building, you feel me? Just got out of Venom The Last Dance, you feel me? We're gonna talk about it a little bit, so welcome to another real review. I think that's what we're gonna call him, the real review. I like it, you know what I'm saying? I like the name, you know. It's Venom 3, The Last Dance. Honestly, it's a very solid, very solid send-off for the characters, Eddie Brock and Venom. Well, the Tom Hardy Eddie Brock, I should say. Very decent movie. It wasn't too long, very good runtime. I think it was just under 2 hours, which is very good. What I've come to realize when it comes to comic book movies in general, the closer we are to street level, it's like the better the movie seems to be. Am I tweaking and thinking that, or no? Because I don't know, I enjoy a lot of the movies that are closer to street level more than I do with all this extra stuff that they go up into space and all that. Besides the Guardian series, you know what I'm saying? That will be forever untouchable in my heart. So we're just gonna talk about a couple things here. I'm gonna try to cut the yapping down to a minimum, so I'm not cutting out too much, but until y'all get to rambling, I'm sorry, I apologize for that ahead of time, you know. Let's start off with some of the strong points that this movie had and some of the weak points as well. For one, the first strong point I'm going to throw out there is actually going to be the intro. I thought the intro was quite interesting, you know. It was very cool. We were introduced very early into the actually I think it was the first scene, now that I think about it. Yeah, it was the first scene of the movie. We're introduced into the character Null being the creator of the symbiotes. He has been imprisoned by the symbiotes. For what reason, we don't really know. They didn't explain that at all, but he is locked up currently in some other verse, and he has created these things called the xenophages to try to break him out of this thing. For him to get broken out, the xenophages then go off looking for something called a codex. We'll get to the codex in a little bit here. Starting off, how we find our two heroes here, Eddie Brock and Venom, of course. So we're actually back in the bar from where he was at the end of No Way Home, where he did get transported into the MCU universe. We're actually back in that exact same bar, talking to that exact same bartender, and I'm fairly certain it's almost the exact same conversation, if not scene, from the end credit scene of No Way Home, where he does get teleported back. So of course it does start off, he gets teleported back into his universe, and from there Eddie Brock is wanted as a fugitive for the murder of Captain Mulligan, who was played by, I believe, Donnie Wahlberg, I believe played by Donnie Wahlberg. I believe so. Let me check. Oh, it's not it's not who did I say? I thought it was one of the Wahlberg brothers. Hold on. He looks just like Donnie Wahlberg. Hold on. I genuinely thought this was one of the Wahlberg brothers. He looks just like, am I tweaking? Bro, you can't tell me this isn't the same nigga. Oh, my mind is blown. I might be racist. I'm so sorry. He's not played by Donnie Wahlberg. He's played by Stephen Graham. I had a whole note here saying Donnie Wahlberg. Let me knock that off out of here. Oh my word, I didn't even give the spoiler warning. Let me give a huge spoiler warning for anyone that didn't watch Venom Last Dance yet. My word. The character Null actually is quite wasted, I feel like, in this movie. He's not as present as this movie as one would want, unfortunately, so just to throw it out there. Actually, that could be one of the weak points for this movie. We didn't get enough of the big bad, you know what I'm saying? We didn't get enough of him. As a whole, just in general for the movie, I honestly thought Null held back. I thought he held back like hell. Honestly, he should have won. From the outlook of things, I love Venom, I love Eddie Brock, but Null should have kicked their ass. I'm just saying. Back into the intro. Eddie Brock, he's on the run, wanted for the murder of Patrick Mulligan, who was the cop that we saw die, quote unquote, at the end of Carnage. He actually was found by this new company, or secret organization, I guess you could say, and was given a symbiote of his own, actually. Now, this organization is called, there's Area 51, they're underneath Area 51 called Area 55. This is for the symbiote data analysis and research development, some bullshit like that, right? I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of weak. I thought that was kind of whack, that out of nowhere they have a whole symbiote thing outside of the Life organization. There's just a whole nother government organization working on symbiotes at the same time. I found that very hard to believe, but I digress. So Eddie Brock, now thinking he's on the run again, he decides, hey, we're gonna go to New York. I'm thinking we're gonna go meet Spider-Man. Nope, they teased the shit out of New York. Oh, so disappointing. But I digress. Here we get into our first fight. It's not a fight, really. It's just Venom and Eddie just kicking a bunch of Mexicans' asses because they were dogfighting. And I don't mean Mexican as like a derogatory term. They're in Mexico. I'm talking about the locals. You feel me? From what I can say here, another strong point being that the effects of this movie were phenomenal. They're still great. That is one thing I was worried about going into this movie, because this is the third movie in the franchise, and compared to the first movie. The second movie did not do all that well, I don't think, in the box office. It might have, but I don't think they might have like done well and they broke even, but I don't know if it did too well to where their next budget for this movie would have been like a big budget or good enough for where we could have some decent effects. But the effects were actually great. I had no problems with them. The CGI was seamless, you know what I'm saying? Of course, it's the uncanny valley, so of course you're gonna pick up in your back of your head, oh, that's not real, but they're aliens. Like, come on now, you've never seen an alien IRL. I don't think. You're not gonna be like, oh, that's fake. Of course it's fake. It's an alien. Shut up. Moving on to our next strong point, actually, from the same fight scene. This movie's not as serious. It still, you know, finds the humor and things, which I loved about the first and second movie, you know. These two characters, actually, they're still funny. You know what I'm saying? They're still funny. Actually, in the fight scene, if you remember the end scene from Venom 1, Eddie and Venom in unison say, "We are Venom." It's in the trailer, but I still thought it was funny. In this movie, they kind of mess it up a couple times just to show that, you know, they're not in sync. Once we get out of this fight, they are again fleeing because they are on the run and they're them being fugitives and all. So Venom actually decides, hey, we can go to New York directly via plane, and the way they decide to fly is by hanging off the side of the plane, as you saw in the trailer. Here they get knocked off the plane by one of the xenophages that did attack them. Let me throw this in here real quick. The xenophages are cool, but they are handicapped a bit, so they don't attack what they don't see. And the way Null has created these things, they were manufactured or engineered to only see the codex, which is the key that would free Null from his imprisonment. Now, the codex being something that's actually inside of Venom and Eddie Brock. It's explained that in the first movie, when Eddie Brock did unfortunately get speared through the chest, we find out that he actually did die that day. Now, Venom actually revived him instead of the typical regeneration. He actually brought Eddie back to life. Bringing Eddie back to life actually has caused these two to fuse into one being, and in that, the codex was created. The only complication from this is the two of them is what creates the codex. So if one of them dies, the codex is no more, right? I also believe their lives are linked together, but I don't know how much because of how the movie ended. With the codex, the xenophage locks onto this like a homing beacon. The only way the codex is visible is if Venom is in full form, meaning he completely takes over and he's in the suit mode, I guess you could call, when Venom and Eddie are fighting as one. So as long as he doesn't fully manifest, then he's hidden from the xenophage. Quick side note, the xenophage is a dope character. I thought it was very cool. It's a very cool creature and stuff like that. It's like an alien garbage disposal in the way that it eats something and then it spits it out. My one drawback with the xenophages is how Null kind of like, he only sent one at first, but you see him in the first scene send thousands of these bitches off, but we only see like max 3 in the entire movie. So I thought that was confusing. Another weak point, unfortunately, is going to be the side characters in this film. Oh my god, these people were whack. They're such great actors wasted on such shit writing. Like, oh my word, this pissed me off. But like, Chilto Geofor, bro, I love that nigga, man. You know what I'm saying? That's Mordo. If you're a Marvel fan, or if not, and you've watched, you know, 12 Years a Slave, American Gangster, or you know, any other movie that has a black guy, he's most likely in it. You know what I'm saying? He's such a great actor, and he's playing a dickhead. The best part about these side characters is probably gonna be the hippies we meet halfway through the movie. I don't remember what their names were exactly. I think the first dude's name was Martin. Martin's a guy. Martin's a goddamn stud. But the rest of these side characters were so weak. Juno Temple's character, Dr. Payne, terrible. I think she goes by Teddy. Teddy sucks. Mid-ass backstory about how she lost her brother in a thunderstorm. Like, no joke, not like she couldn't find a nigga. He was killed by a lightning strike. So they're on the beach, they're running along, boom, they get struck by lightning. Tell me how she's the one that got struck by lightning, but because she's holding this nigga's hand, he's the one that perishes. Explain that to me. You can't, because it doesn't make sense. You probably could, actually. I'm not a scientist, but that's besides the point. Another bullshit character, I think, was, I don't even know her name. She was another scientist in this movie. She redeems herself a little bit in the end, but it's like, I don't know what they were trying to make out of this character. I don't know why she was there. And they were giving her, like, such a quirky character as well. Like, she loves Christmas or something like that. And like, I'm not trying to hate on this movie too much, but we gotta talk about the weak points here, you know what I'm saying? That's not me being realistic if I don't talk about what's wrong with this movie. Don't get me wrong, I like the movie. You know what I'm talking about? I like the movie. The characters, the side characters I should say, are quite mid. Another strong point I'm gonna give this movie is the unique locations we actually got compared to the first films. In the first two films, I'm fairly certain both of them are in California and we're stuck in California. But in this movie, you know, we start off in Mexico. We see a little bit of Mexico, not too much, but we see enough. And then we're in Arizona, or no, we're in Nevada now. The landscapes and the backgrounds, it's beautiful. It looks beautiful where the movie took us. So, you know what I'm saying? That was great. I thought that was very cool that we actually got to view the Venom world outside of California. So I thought that was very cool. Actually, I think we went to Vegas as well. Ooh, the Vegas scene of itself was a strong point. Let's say that. I'm gonna talk about that next. The Vegas scene was so fun, as short-lived as it was. It was funny seeing Venom gamble. It's just funny watching that addiction take hold of an alien. Oh, Mrs. Chen! They don't really explain this, and not that they need to. They actually end up running into Mrs. Chen, who's on a mean streak. And let me tell you, Mrs. Chen looked good. I'm not gonna, you know what I'm saying? You didn't hear that from me, but, and I'm not like into older women that much, but like, you know what I'm saying? I definitely, you know, I'd go there. Let me reroute this conversation back. So we get actually a very funny scene in where Venom in full suit, I mean, like Venom is dancing with Mrs. Chen, and I thought that was very fun. So the Vegas scene was phenomenal. I'll give them an extra point just for the Vegas scene alone. And the pacing at this point, we're at about 45 minutes into the movie. I think the pacing was decent. That being a strong point, I don't know if we're gonna give them a whole point. One quick question I did have at this point in the movie. This has to do with not Donnie. His name is not Donnie. This has to do with Mulligan's character. I think he's dead or stuff, but he was actually taken to the Area 55 where he was given a symbiote of his own. What confused me is because of how much the Life Foundation in movie 1 was trying to figure out symbiosis, how seamless it was at this point. In this movie, they literally just gave him the symbiote and it worked. So it's like, I don't know if that's like a slap in the face to people that watched the first movie or something, but I was just so confused by it. I was like, how is it that they got it this flawlessly? I don't know. I guess it does. So, oh, and also another thing, we find out in this movie, it's only been a year since Eddie Brock was infected with the symbiote. Venom 2018 to Let There Be Carnage to The Last Dance in 2024 was a year span. And even Venom was like, it's really been a year. I was like, yeah, I mean, shit, I'm right there with you, dog. It's been 6 over here on this side of the screen. So, I mean, they did that with John Wick, I guess. So, I mean, it makes sense. But I thought that was crazy. Next strong point we're going to talk about is actually the score and composition of this movie. It's very decent. It's not bad. Soundtrack was very good as well. I like the songs that they chose to use for some of the scenes. I thought they added to the scenes. Even at the end of the movie, the song they decided to end the movie off was very, very good, and I thought it was very fitting. Not gonna have too much more to say about that. Decent sound, decent score, decent soundtrack, I should say. And actually, at this point in the movie, you start to realize that the next weak point we're gonna have is that they teased us with New York. We don't actually go to New York until the last scene of the movie, unfortunately. And I thought that was like, okay, it's, you know, am I mad that we're not gonna get to see Spider-Man and he doesn't get a cameo? Yeah, I'm mad. I wanted to watch either Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield swing across that. And even when we do end up going to New York, I thought we were going to see one of them too. So it's whatever. Leading next to our next strong point, the movie's actually still funny. You know what I'm saying? These two are actually still comical. I'm not saying I'm busting out laughing during the whole movie. I got to chuckle. You got to chuckle out of me every now and again. The movie's going to be kind of funny. Also, and these are kind of like bunched together, but there's a lot of cool scenes in this movie. I don't know why we don't throw that as another strong point for this film. There's a lot of cool scenes. From Venom Horse. Venom took over a lot of animals. So Venom Horse, we got a Venom Fish, we got a Venom Frog. Oh, it was cool. It was very cool seeing that. Like, some of the stunts in this movie were kind of cool too. You know what I'm saying? We got a whole, like, we had a fight scene in a river. That's sick. You know what I'm saying? I want to meet the second unit director just for that alone, of course. The second unit director being the guy ahead of the stunts, I should say. Cool transformations in general, along with like a lot of cool scenes in this movie, which I generally enjoyed. You know what I'm saying? So again, the movie is very fun. It's very good to see that this movie got a proper send-off instead of like some bullshit half-ass, like low budget production where we don't know the franchise is ending, but the studio knows, so they're just not gonna give him money anymore. It wasn't one of those. It's like they wrapped this up very nicely. We got a proper farewell for these characters, so I don't think we can ask for more than that. I thought that was very nice. Now, to circle back to the scene in the river where they're fighting in the river and stuff like that, Eddie is being hunted down by the Area 55 group. Now, in this scene where they're fighting these military, secret service, whatever they are, Eddie and Venom are separated at this point. They have the sound gun and stuff, so they separated. Eddie being by himself and vulnerable, of course, because without Venom he can't regenerate and he would die. He's fighting off as some of these people, of course. He's doing a decent job. Unfortunately, as they're scuffling, one of these soldiers, I want to say, does go for their gun, and in doing so, Eddie, not wanting to die, he actually ends up turning the pistol around and the soldier shoots herself in the face, or no, in the neck, I believe. Yeah, in the neck. This is not so much of a strong point. This is like a turning point for the character, right? So Eddie has actually just taken a life. To add more insult to injury, this is actually an innocent person. Like, of course, they're just doing their job, you know what I'm saying? They have not done any ill will. This is not a secret organization that does bad things per se. They just study aliens that have landed here. Really, all these people are guilty of doing is just lying to the public. Eddie, of course, being torn with himself a little bit because he's taking a life, you know what I'm saying? That's gonna weigh heavily on everyone, and I feel like that did weigh heavily and kind of affect his character throughout the rest of the movie, because he was getting more and more serious. He wasn't getting entirely serious, but he was getting more serious towards the end of the film. We're gonna go back to the Area 55 group. I'm not gonna lie, this is another weak point for me. This whole side story with the alien research and development stuff is very weak. It doesn't add a whole lot more to the story itself. It just gives us a lot of unnecessary exposition, shit we knew in the first two movies, but I guess they had to explain it to some of the other characters that were gonna be involved at the end of the movie, I guess. But still, it's just a lot more exposition. Like, they're talking about how sound affects them still, and it's like, we know, we've seen 2 movies about this. They explain the null situation. They explain the Kodak situation again. Like, that being explained twice in one movie is outrageous to me. But again, I guess they wanted to explain to the characters that weren't with us in the first 2 movies. So I'd say the best part about this whole side story thing was we actually get to see Peter Mulligan's symbiote, which looks freaking cool as hell. The symbiotes in this movie were tough. The next strong point I had was it was a very interesting conflict that they introduced into the story. Again, they explained the null situation in the Kodaks with the scientist and Strickland's character. It's like they find out that if either Eddie or Venom dies, then the Kodaks is no more, of course. So that being a whole, like, okay, now we can hunt down these 2 and just kill them. Null's plan, basically, when he gets freed from this prison, is to eradicate all life. What I think is gonna happen, he's being built up to be the new Thanos. We're most likely gonna see him again from how they played it at the end of the movie. I don't get how he ends up entering or coming back into the story here with either Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield, but hey, maybe they could make it work. My guess is he's gonna show back up in the MCU with the next Tom Holland Spider-Man film. Well, another thing I like to point out here, and this is, I'm not gonna say this is a strong point, we're shown how, like, Eddie's still human, you know? He still wants a regular life. He's a little sad at this point. I just thought that was cool how we could, you know, still see that he's human. You know what I'm saying? That's a very nice thing to see. We're hopping a little farther along into the movie. This is basically the end of the movie now. Again, Strickland's trying to kill Eddie at this point just to save their universe or whatever. Strickland does mention something here called the Imperium program. Now, I don't know what that is, but I recognize that name from somewhere, bro. Oh, okay. So this is an X-Men thing. Oh, so I don't even know if that was on purpose. So this is actually an X-Men reference that was made in the movie. The Imperium are Cyclops-like shape-shifting aliens created by the white Martians to be the forces of apocalypse and the ultimate incarnation of evil. So I don't even know why that was brought up. I didn't know what that meant when he said Imperium, and I was like, I've recognized that name from somewhere, but that's besides the point. Just wanted to point that out. Now, we don't really see too much of what this Imperium thing is, really. Who knows what that could have been, but there's also this, like, secret group, like, of people that are watching all this go down. They don't tell us what we're looking at here whenever we see them. And I mean, to be fair, they only get 2 scenes in the movie, but it's like, still, who was that? So yeah, now we're at the ending of the movie, so I'm just gonna explain here what happened from this point on. So now at this point, Eddie and Venom have been captured by Strickland. Mulligan and his symbiote tell Eddie that, hey, the xenophages are gonna come here. Given that there's symbiotes here, if you free them, then we're happy to fight for you and stuff like that. Venom is captured and he's in one of these stasis cages, I don't know, something. He's just suspended in air, right? Now that one lady scientist from earlier I was talking about, she is shown to be a bit more like infatuated with Venom. And now Strickland actually comes to kill Eddie. Venom and Eddie are split up at this point, so if Eddie does get killed here, he dies for real. The first thing Strickland does when he's out of that cell is shoot him point blank in the chest. We're near enough to the end of the movie. I'm thinking, did they just kill him like that? But no, actually the lady scientist did end up sneaking Venom into the cell, I should say. We get Eddie Brock Venom once again. But that does also bring the xenophage to exactly where they're at, and here starts the last fight of the movie. What's cool about this is once we get to the fight itself, we're in the main floor, or the main area of the lab they're in area 55. The symbiotes that are being held captive there actually start attaching to different humans around the place, and we get a whole bunch of new symbiotes, and these dudes look freaking cool. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get Scream and we didn't get Anti-Venom, so there's hope for them showing up in the future. These might not have been like canon characters other than Toxin, I guess, and Lasher. They had different powers though, I'll tell you that. You know, whether or not they're binding. One of them was like molten lava almost, and he had a whip. That was freaking cool. One of them combined, well, actually no, two of them combined together and they formed one symbiote. This other one can like enlarge his fists and stuff, and he's just bashing shit with that. Lasher was actually introduced. That was the scientist lady that I was talking about, not Teddy, the other one. But now we actually in this fight here, we're on the surface now. So this is Area 51's like lot, I guess you could say. The fight seems not bad here, you know. It's different symbiotes against this xenophage and stuff like that. It's not going too well, I should say, from the looks of it. The xenophage seems to be able to regenerate. I completely forgot about this. How did a civilian family of 4 sneak into Area 51? And it wasn't even that hard for him either. It's like they got through a hole in the fence. I was like, this is Area 51, dog. This is a government facility. And these hippies just waltzed in here. Bruh, is that not insane? And of course, Eddie and Venom are back together now at this point, but they're not manifesting so they don't attract the attention of the xenophage, and they're trying to get out of there to make sure that they survive, of course. Now, at this point of the fight, it's very cool looking, you know what I'm saying? It's all CGI, so it's not, you know, too much to admire there, but again, it looks great. The effects are very cool, very seamless, so you don't really notice. That being said, we go back to No now. This is no joke, his 3rd, maybe 4th scene in the film, and we're almost an hour 40 minutes into the movie. He decides to send more xenophages, even though he already sent 1,000 to who knows where. Now it seems to be 2 xenophages that show up instead of just the 1. So I was like, okay, you know, maybe that could do some damage. But why only 2? Like, I don't get that. Like, I don't get why only 2. Oh my word. Maybe the budget only called for 2. I don't know what to tell ya. Now, Venom and Eddie are riding away on a bike. Of course, them two being noble, they try to lead the xenophage as far away as possible. That doesn't seem to work too well. So now at this point, Eddie and Venom are, it seems like they're losing all hope, right? So Venom decides, hey, you know, we're the lethal protector. We're gonna do this, let's do this, you know? So we're not gonna hide anymore. We're gonna just try to save everyone, save as much people as we can, try to come out as the heroes in this. So they come out, they expose themselves from hiding, and they decide to manifest one more time. Of course, the xenophages know exactly where they are now. This time, Venom decides to morph around all of them into this big blob, and he actually walks into this huge acid dispenser or something like that. We see one scene earlier in the movie where Strickland is the only one that can access this shit via his thumbprint and his eye scan. Venom, of course, telling Strickland, hey, you don't have to turn this on. We're gonna try to kill these things with the acid. And here is where we actually get the noble sacrifice that we seem, I don't know if we get them in all the movies, but I know in the first movie, Venom seemed to sacrifice himself to save Eddie when they fell off the rocket. So yeah, Eddie and Venom are taking these monster things to the vat of acid to try to kill him. But at the last second, right before it turns on, Venom does throw Eddie out of himself and decides to save him so he can sacrifice his own life and, you know, not kill Eddie in the meantime. Strickland turns on the machine. The acid starts pouring down, of course, and it's just a sad scene, you know? Venom's telling Eddie, hey, I'm never gonna forget you. Don't forget me. That was sad as hell. Oh my word. The acid doesn't actually seem to be working, so Venom decides to just break the whole thing. So he's just breaking this thing apart, and he gets completely dumped in the acid. Like, and I mean, it's all over him, right? Now, actually, this is where Strickland comes into play. Strickland, he's too close, and he's been terribly injured at this point, so he can't even make it if he wanted to. Strickland decides, hey, I'm just gonna blow myself up and try to, you know, take the rest of these monsters with me. So he just pulls out a grenade like it's a normal Tuesday, and he just blows his shit to smithereens. And then that's the end of Strickland. And then that's actually where we leave off here with the Venom story. Well, actually, real quick, we actually do get introduced into another symbiote. I didn't mention this earlier, but what's her name? Teddy, bum ass, ends up taking a symbiote that gives her like super speed or some shit. That was kind of cool. Why didn't we see this earlier though? You know what I'm saying? Why save this for some dumbass rescue attempt? You know what I'm talking about? Like, she was trying to save like the other lady scientist, but it's like, dude, you wasted that. I'm not gonna, you wasted that. At this point, the whole facility has been blown to smithereens, right? Eddie, of course, or Venom, I'm saying, of course, sacrificing himself. He did make sure Eddie was safe before everything went down. So Eddie being one of the only people to walk away from this, Eddie, the lady scientist, and Teddy, we cut to the next scene, which is actually Eddie in New York. No joke, that was the last scene in the movie, Eddie in New York. That's how long it took us to get to New York. I was so disappointed. He is there because Venom did tell him back when they were in Vegas, he really wants to see New York. Like, he wants to see the Statue of Liberty, and he has Eddie promise. He's like, can we please go see this, right? And of course, Eddie decides not to break his promise, so he ends up going to New York to see the Statue of Liberty. And it's still on the run, by the way, so I thought that was very brave, but yeah. Oh, actually, no, never mind. Backpedal a little bit here. Eddie wakes up in a hospital, and he's trying to see if Venom's still there. Unfortunately, Venom is no more, right? He did successfully sacrifice himself to save everyone. Sadly enough, Venom has died, I believe. That's what it's framed out, right? That's the writing on the wall. He's no longer with Eddie, right? And of course, Eddie's sad about it. And since him and Venom did save the day, technically, they're given pardon for anything that might have happened, or for anything that happened with Mulligan, I should say. But yeah, so now Eddie and Venom are no longer together, of course, very sad. The next scene we cut to is Eddie, I should say, in New York. He goes to the Statue of Liberty, and we're looking at Statue of Liberty, and he says, I'm not gonna forget you, buddy. And that's where the movie cuts to black. Bittersweet ending, you know? A very, very, very bittersweet ending. But I honestly thought that was a proper send-off and a proper farewell for these two characters. Sad, of course. I wanted Venom to come back too. But hey, you know, again, there's still a piece of Venom, I believe, still in the MCU verse. So maybe we'll see Venom again. Eddie Brock, or Tom Hardy, I should say. That is it for his character in the series, or in the Sony universe. Memories by Maroon 5 was playing, so that was very fun. You know, nice ending for them too and stuff. But Venom's dead, so you know, it's sad. Again, I'm so disappointed by Null's appearance in this movie, or lack thereof, I should say. No joke, he barely moved the entire film. He might have moved his head twice. I swear the second time he moved his head was the end credit scene. Oh my goodness. That being said, there are 2 end credit scenes for this movie. They don't really build up to anything, and they definitely don't build to another Venom movie. We're done with this franchise. That was the 3rd one, hence the name The Last Dance. The Null end credit scene, it does seem like Null wants to spin back, so maybe we'll see more of him in the future. But the second one, it was nothing really. It was a gag. It was a joke, really. Or even if there's there, so it's hinting to like the new fast symbiote that Teddy took along with her. Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Editor Simba in the building. Actually, before we wrap this video up, I did forget to give my rating of the movie. And I also want to I apologize for this coming out a bit too late. It was like a couple days late, I'd say. Stuff I gotta deal with, you know what I'm saying, and I wasn't feeling the best, so I did hold off on editing this. I did want to give my rating of the movie, of course, before, you know what I'm saying, before I wrap this video up. Starting off with writing and the story, I'm gonna give this movie a 6.5. It's not the worst writing in the world, but it's also not the most interesting story, of course. I'm gonna give the sound design and the score another 6.5. The soundtrack was better than the actual sound design itself, but the score was decent, so you know. The acting in this movie, I'm gonna give another 6.5. The side characters, I should say, ruined it for the movie, but Eddie and Venom did carry. So for the cinematography, I'm gonna give a 6. So nothing too crazy they did with the camera work, but it's very easy easy to follow, so you know, I can appreciate that. And overall for Venom 3 The Last Dance, I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10, and I think that's honestly generous. You know, I'm biased to the character, so that might be why it's a bit more padded on this end, but I think that's a very fair score. And also, it's not a bad movie and all or anything. It's just, you know, they were just sending off, or we're just ending this chapter when it comes to this character in the cinematic universe. So hey, you get what you get. Back to the main video. I do appreciate y'all for listening to me ramble. If you did enjoy the video, if you could toss me one of them likes, I truly do appreciate them. They don't go without notice. The next video we're probably going to review, not react, review, because I'll react to a video sooner than later. The next review is probably going to be Heretic, which is a horror movie that comes out in about 2 weeks. That movie looks freaking good, you know what I'm saying? So of course I'm gonna watch it. But yeah, we will catch y'all in the next review, of course. So again, that's gonna be it for me from here. I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video. But without further ado, I'm gonna bid y'all a good night, a better morning, and all that ish. I'll catch y'all in the next one. God bless. I'm out.